What are my values? If you can't immediately answer the question, that's okay. Most people can't. What do values have to do with health? Well, that's a question I'd like to answer today. We're going to do a lot of reflecting on this week's episode of Chronically Living, so I hope you're ready for it. I'm Kelsey Harris, chronic illness warrior and psychotherapist. On Chronically Living and How to Make the Most of It, we're providing tangible ways to improve the well-being of Spoonies. So get ready to make the most out of your life, even with that pesky chronic illness. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. So I'm going to be upfront. I kind of think of this episode as part one of a two-part series. Part two will be the next solo episode coming at the end of the month, and it will make a bit more sense then about why I consider this part one of two. Trust me, it works out. Today, we're going to talk about values. So what is a value? Some of you are probably laughing at the question, and others are literally thinking they don't have a clue. And hey, either way, that's okay. We really don't talk about values very specifically very often in our lives. And yet, when I have a discussion with people about values one-on-one, they are always able to come up with some after some brainstorming. So a value is our judgment of what is important in life. It aligns with our principles and standards of behavior. They are qualities of action and define how we behave, including how we treat ourselves and other people, and really the world as a whole. Values are not goals. Okay? But values help us behave in certain ways while we go after our goals. Wants, needs, desires, they usually align with our goals as opposed to our values specifically. So I'm just going to give you a few examples of this. This is from Russ Harris, and this is what he says about values versus goals. So a goal would be seeking kindness from others, but a value would be being kind to ourselves and others. A goal would be seeking respect from others. I want to be respected. But a value would be being respectful to ourselves and to others. Values are also not virtues, morals, or ethics. This is because they are more than just, good or bad judgments on behavior. They are expressions of our actual behavior. To try to make this a little more clear, I'm going to read out a checklist of 36 values. If you're up to it, feel free to write down the ones that you consider to be very important to you. I like this exercise. I think it can be a really nice way to reflect. So it would be important to you if it's at least a 7 out of 10 of importance. That's when I would write it down. So here we go. Accepting of myself, others, my feelings, pain, etc. So accepting. Adventurous, this is having exciting experiences. Assertive, this could be standing up for my rights in a respectful manner. Authentic, or genuineness. Caring and self-caring, so that could be of myself, of others, the environment. Compassionate and self-compassionate, so again, kindness to myself, others in the world. Cooperative, or willing to work with others. Courageous. Creative. Curious, so being open-minded and interested. Encouraging, of behavior that I approve of. Expressive, of my thoughts and feelings. Focused on what I'm doing. Fair or just toward myself and others. Flexible or adaptable to the circumstances. Friendly, so that's towards others. Forgiving, and this is to myself and others. Grateful, helpful, honest, independent, industrious or hardworking, kind to myself and others, loving to myself and others, mindful or present, open, as in revealing of myself, orderly, so neat and organized, persistent and committed. This could be despite problems or difficulties. Playful, which is humorous, fun. Protective of myself and others. Respectful or self-respectful to myself and others. Responsible. skillful, so this is using your knowledge and experience, supportive, being helpful and encouraging to myself and others, trustworthy, so loyal, honest, faithful, any of those words, and trusting, so this is willing to believe the other person. So hopefully you were able to write down or mentally note at least a few values that ring true for you. Now that we've defined what values are, we're going to be going a little more deeper into this values thing. Hey warriors, what if it was possible to get local, fresh groceries delivered right to your front door? You could take up deep sea yoga with all that free time. Well, Instacart gives you unlimited grocery delivery for one low monthly fee. This is definitely better than paying for delivery on all those other apps. Forget that one ingredient you needed to make that super healthy smoothie. Instacart can deliver to your front door in as little as an hour. You can shop multiple stores, getting all your favorites on a single order. Instacart even highlights deals so that you can save money. Get all the products you love, hand-selected by shoppers based on your preferences. They'll pick the freshest produce and they'll keep your eggs safe too. Find everything you usually buy and get smart suggestions on new items. To get free delivery on your first order over $10, follow the link in the show notes to let Instacart know that we sent you and help support the show. With Instacart, you'll never step foot in a grocery store again. Okay, so before we get into this values thing a little more, I'm gonna just let you know a couple that are really important to me from that list of 36 that we went through. And I kind of debated whether I was going to share what mine were, but I think it's really helpful. So accepting, including of my pain, did an episode on acceptance. I think you guys probably know that. Adventurous, super, super important to me. I can't really tell you why, but it just is. Self-caring, caring, self-caring, compassionate, self-compassionate, authentic. Those are all things that are really important to me. Creative, friendly, honest, independent, mindful, present, respectful, self-respectful. So those are just some of the ones that really ring true for me. And of course, the values go way beyond this list. This was just some really common ones that people tend to say. So I want to talk for a moment about destructive behavior. When we engage in behavior that hurts ourselves or others in some way, it's not motivated by our values. And look, we all act in this way at one point or another in our lives, often more than we'd like to admit. Pretty much everyone has lied at some point in their life, manipulated others, neglected our own health, hurt someone we love. And this could be intentionally or unintentionally, but we've all done these things. And these behaviors are never motivated by our values. So think back to the values we just discussed. Would doing any of those behaviors align with any of those values? No. Short answer, no. So this means that these destructive behaviors are removed from our values. They lead us to what is referred in acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, as away moves. And I explain more about ACT back in season 2, episode 12, about creative hopelessness. And these solo episodes have kind of been a series since then. So if you haven't listened to them, it might be helpful to kind of go back through. So away moves, they take us away from our values. Pretty simple. And towards moves, they would take us toward our values. But, just hint, we're going to talk about more of that on part 2. So that'll be at the end of the month. Okay, so that was kind of the downer part of the episode. Here are some common categories our values fall into. So these are very broad categories. So parenting, personal growth, leisure, spirituality, health, work, community and environment, family relationships, intimate relationships, and social relationships. So try to see if you can get specific about your values, and maybe try writing one down for each category if you've decided to do some of the writing today. As an example, if it's family and relationships is the broad category and respect is the value, then maybe to be specific on the value, maybe that is being respectful to your parents and siblings. Right? So I'm not saying that is your value or isn't your value. That's just an example of how you could write it down more specifically if you really wanted to get in touch with what your values are. So you're probably thinking by now, what the heck does this have to do with my chronic illness? This seems ridiculous. This talk about values is garbage. It's not going to make me feel better. And hey, I get it. This is a really abstract episode, which is why it is part 1 of 2. And I'm going to try to answer the question the best I can right now. So let's take the broad category of health. What are your values when it comes to health? So I'll give you 2 of mine, I guess. So broadly, I would say like self-caring and curious. So if I want to be specific about my values there, I want to self-care for my own health as much as possible. And I am curious about different treatments and ways of thinking that can improve my overall health. If you know what your values are, you can see if you're currently living by your values or not. If not, that's okay. First, if we're not clear on what our values even are, we can't live by them. Not intentionally anyway. Unintentionally, we do a lot, but then we also don't a lot. When we know what they are, we can make some intentional decisions there. And then second, a lot of people with chronic illness really struggle to live by their values. And this is for various reasons, but it's usually tied to thoughts and feelings about their illnesses. And if this is the case for you and you haven't listened to season 2, episode 21 on acceptance of pain, I strongly suggest you go back and take a listen to that episode after this one. And then, obviously you can seek some psychotherapy, clinical counseling, which is my day job. That can help you with a lot of this as well, creating that distance, accepting, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I hope it's at least a little more clear on why we're exploring values and how it might be helpful for your health. So you can't live by your values, your health values, even if we're just looking at that category, if you don't know what they are. And again, part 2 is how we're going to live by them. All right, so I want to give you a few more ideas on how to figure out what your values are. Of course, you can just run through the checklist from early in the episode. There's like a million checklists online. You can Google and there will be tons that come up. And that's a really efficient, but kind of broad way of doing it. So this is a technique I learned from Russ Harris, of course. He is my favorite ACT guru. It's called Imagine Your 80th Birthday. So if you are willing and able, you can close your eyes if it might help you to imagine this. And if you'd rather keep your eyes open, that's totally fine as well. So just imagine that it's your 80th birthday. And there are 3 different people who are going to give a speech about you. Now, because this is in your imagination, it doesn't really have to make perfect sense. So even if you imagine yourself at 80, but your friends still look like they do now, that's fine. Or you can have people in attendance who wouldn't be alive by then or are already dead at this point. You can have your future children that aren't even born yet there. Doesn't matter, it's your imagination. So really do whatever you want. So if magic could happen, so all your dreams come true, then what would your 80th birthday look like? If your mind just starts telling you things that hook you, like no one would say this about me and my dreams could never come true and all that stuff, just thank you mind, just to unhook from that thought and just go back to your imagination, right? So it's your 80th birthday and everyone who matters to you, your friends, family, partner, children, whoever else, everyone you care about is there. Now imagine that one person who you really care about stands up to make a speech about you. The speech is short and sweet. It's just a few sentences. And they talk about what you stand for in life, what you mean to them, and the role you played in their life. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. Just imagine them saying whatever you would most love to hear them say. Now choose a second person and have them do the same thing. So just 3 or 4 sentences about what you stand for, what you mean to them, the role you played in their life, whatever words your heart most desires to hear. And finally, pick one last person who shares again just a few words about what you stand for, what you mean to them, and the role you played in their life. And remember, this is what you'd most like to hear. Most people find that this exercise brings up a range of feelings. So just notice what you're feeling. Consider what the feelings are telling you, what truly matters to you, what sort of person you want to be, and what you're neglecting. We're going to end this exercise. So just notice your breathing, your body. Notice the sounds you can hear. And open your eyes and notice what you can see. Take a stretch and notice what it feels like to move your body. Hopefully that exercise helps you connect with some of your values more specifically. Now, again, some of you might still not see how values have anything to do with improving your well-being with chronic illness, and that is okay. It's good for, I think, overall well-being anyway, and our mental health, just to know what our values are and connect with them on a very intentional level, because we rarely get the chance to do that in our lives. So let's reflect. What did you notice about your thoughts and feelings during the episode? What are you noticing now as you look back on your noticing? And just reflect back to what you thought about the concept of values before this episode, and then what comes to mind right now. Next week, my guest is a health coach who's going to talk to us about something I love, food. All right, everybody, keep making the most of it. Special thanks to Marty for the original music and Charity Williams for the original artwork.